Good morning, everybody. Juan Godinez from Los Angeles Unified School District Advisory Committee. As you can see, 1 minute is hard. We're trying. Okay. We generally support Algebra 1 in 8th grade. About time, 2 years ago, I told you my testimony about the California education system. I know initially it's going to be hard, like NCLV is, maybe not una terrible, but LEAs are going to put the effort to do it. At least they're going to try. And that's what I like about it. But at the end, doesn't matter what happens with the Common Core standards. It's of the utmost importance to let the parents know about the standards. They need to know what the kid's supposed to be learning, not just in 8th grade, but this is a process throughout previously. And it has not been done successfully, previously. Let the parents know how we can help our kids, learn. And being a minority, low income, has nothing to do with learning. What we need is a quality education accessible for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, and perfect timing.
The next three are Pixie Hayward Shickley, Marta Zaragoza Diaz, and Lori Burnham Massey.
Good morning, President Mitchell, Board, Superintendent. I'm Pixie Hayward Shickley, representing the California Teachers Association, and it's my great pleasure this morning to introduce the Vice President of the California Teachers Association, Dean Vogel. I'd also like to give what's left of my time to him. Thank you.
Good morning. Very happy to be here, and thank you for your thoughtful attention to what's before us. I am, for the record, Dean Vogel, Vice President of the California Teachers Association. I'm here on behalf of my president, who has business in L.A. The California Teachers Association supports the adoption of the Common Core standards, and we are very, very encouraged by what we hear here today and the work that's before you. That being said, we do have a reservation around the 8th grade math concern, much of it voiced here. We implore you to be thoughtful and careful as you attend to the implementation of the 8th grade math, in particular algebra. We believe that there's a potential for the pathway approach, dealing with students who aren't quite ready for algebra in the 8th grade, to lead to tracking. And we hope that you will be diligent in attending to that issue and careful to monitor and assure us that tracking does not take place. The ultimate success of the Common Core, as has been stated earlier, is going to depend on full implementation and full funding. And it's also got to be attention to all schools, all students, not just some schools. And we know that you'll give that careful attention as well. We have a tremendous opportunity here before us, ladies and gentlemen, tremendous opportunity to move California forward and continue the work that this board has been doing. And the California Teachers Association is enthusiastically supportive of the work, and we support wholeheartedly the adoption of the Common Core. Please remember that careful alignment to curriculum, the appropriate textbooks, assessment, professional development are all very, very important. We urge your adoption of the Common Core. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Mr. President and members of the board. My name is Marta Zaragoza Diaz, and I'm representing the California Association for Bilingual Education and the Californians Together Coalition. First, I'd like to thank the Commission and its members, as well as the SCOE staff, for a yeoman's job that they've done in meeting their charge within the tight time constraints that they had to face. We certainly appreciate the recognition and the introduction with regards to the fact that there are certain students, such as English learners and special education, that may require additional support in attaining the standards outlined in the document. We support the Common Core standards. However, we believe that the board can take it one step further. You have our letters already outlining our concerns, but our bottom line is this, If we are to assist teachers in differentiating content instruction and in ensuring that English language development is provided to English learners so that they can become fully proficient and literate in English, it is highly recommended that the English language development standards be an integral part of the Common Core state standards, and that they be included as one of the strands or be aligned within each strand of the grade level language arts standards. It is critical that their revision and integration be done as quickly as possible, and we took the privilege of providing a recommended timeline that we think is doable.
1 minute,
We
20
seek
seconds.
your commitment. We seek your commitment to return to this issue later this year. It is a very significant issue for English learners. California's English language development standards are considered model English language proficiency standards nationally. California, once again, has an opportunity to
1
lead the
minute, 45
nation
seconds.
by providing an exemplary lined English language proficiency model for other states to use. Our organizations stand ready to assist you in this very important effort. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Laurie Burnham, and I give my time to be added to the time of the next speaker, Shelley Spiegel-Coleman. Thank you.
Good morning, President Mitchell, Superintendent O'Connell, and board members. I'm Shelley Spiegel-Coleman with Californians Together. We recommend that the same staircase approach of building complexity from grade level to grade level in the Common Core standards and the supplemental approach of the artful inclusion of K-8 content literacy standards to supplement the state's content standards be equally directed at meeting the needs of English learners. In California, we need to align our current English language development standards to the approved Common Core standards if we are to give our teachers the additional support that they need to bring students to grade level Common Core standards. These English language development or English language proficiency standards would be just like the content literacy standards, not replacing the language arts standards, but supplementing them. Without this work, at the state level, each district, school, or teacher would be left to define what does it mean to give extra time to promote language proficiency. They themselves would have to create the clear alignment and write new standards where
1
holes
minute,
may
30
exist.
seconds.
If the state does not do this, then schools, districts, and teachers might ignore or better yet be overwhelmed by this critical task. Districts like Alisal, with 68.8% of their student body being English learners, Hoover Elementary School and LAUSD, with 83.6% of their students being English learners, need our leadership on this issue. We recommend the adoption
2
of the
minutes.
Common Core standards today to meet the short timeline that you have before you. But in your resolution, we ask you to adopt language as part of the implementation plan that states that the State Board
2
and the
minutes,
Department of
15 seconds.
Education will use all appropriate current funds and any new state or federal funds to do the developmental work to bring English learners into the new and exciting possibility
2
of
minutes,
Common
30
Core
seconds.
standards for all.
Thank
We
you.
too stand ready to help you in this task. Thank you.
President Mitchell, the next three are Cheryl Ortega, Barbara Flores, and Gretchen Mueller.
Good morning. My name is Cheryl Ortega, and I represent United Teachers Los Angeles, representing over 220,000 English language learners in our school district. We'd like to thank the Commission for their work in developing the ELA standards, but we also are strongly encouraging or recognizing the need to articulate that added support may be required for English language learners. We can't emphasize enough the need to connect the ELA standards with the ELD standards. For teachers to have the most explicit guidelines in directing instruction for English language learners, the ELP standards must be distinctly articulated and taught explicitly.
40 seconds.
The more explicit the roadmap, in this case these ELP standards, the more successful the student will be in reaching his or her final academic destination of English proficiency. So we feel strongly at UTLA that the ELP standards must be aligned to the ELA Common Core standards, but be distinctly articulated so that I and my fellow teachers can do a better job in creating scaffolded lessons that are developmentally appropriate, linguistically sound, and ultimately successful in helping our students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, President Mitchell, Superintendent O'Connell, State Board members. My name is Dr. Barbara Flores. I wear many hats. I'm a university professor. My field of expertise is language arts in L1 and L2. I'm a teacher of teachers. I'm currently the vice president also of San Bernardino City Unified School District. And I come to you today, though, as president of the Alliance for Multilingual Multicultural Education. On behalf of the Alliance of Multilingual and Multicultural Education, we would like to submit this testimony regarding the
30 seconds.
Regarding the California Academic Content Standards Commission's recommendations to adopt the Common Core standards. We are an alliance of state organizations, affiliates, and community members that have formed a national collective advocacy agenda for multilingual, bilingual, and English language learners. Currently, we are one of the 3 organizations, along with the Council of Chief of State's officers and the Council of Great City Schools, sponsoring the Fall Summit on the impact of Common Core standards of English language learners. Just one more paragraph. We want to recommend that we support the recommendations of the California ELA Common Standards, but we also highly recommend that the State Board of Education also establish a commission to create English language proficiency standards that are aligned with the English language arts content standards in order to provide better policies and guidelines for instructional practices for teachers teaching English language learners. And in order to accomplish this, the current ELD standards can be revised, edited, and expanded to align with the adopted and approved language arts common core standards.
Thank you.
So we thank you very much.
You.
Okay.
So we do need your help, folks.
Yes. We're ready to work.
I was thinking about time. But I'm happy to know that, too.
So, good morning. I'm Gretchen Muller. I'm with the California Math Council, and I am reading a statement on behalf of Bruce Grip, who was a commissioner and couldn't be here today. He says, distinguished members of the California State Board of Education, I urge you to accept the recommendation of the Academic Content Standards Commission and adopt for California the Common Core State Standards with the additions noted in the CCSS draft for California. As a member of the Commission, I am proud of the work that we did and agree with the recommendation to adopt the CCS. I also support this recommendation as a high school math teacher. He says he values the thoughtful and balanced development of mathematics in the CCSS from kindergarten through high school. What I appreciate most is how the high level of rigor is enhanced by relevance. The infusion of the 8 standards for mathematical practice and the emphasis throughout the Common Core standards on mathematical modeling in real-world contexts add both meaning and rigor to improve students' understanding of mathematics. As a high school mathematics teacher, I would be pleased to teach integrated courses common in other countries or traditional high school mathematics content to students with the quality mathematical preparation based upon these Common Core standards. Thank you. Bruce Grip, high school math teacher.
Thank you.
Cheryl Ortega, John Deasy, and Suzanne Solomon. I skipped someone. I thought it was Cheryl, but it was Alicia, right? It's Alicia. Sorry about that.
Good morning.
Morning.
Like everyone before me, I agree for you to adopt the core standards. I'm here as a person who, for many years, worked as an administrator with students who are on their way to being dropouts because of their low skills, many of which, unfortunately, are ELD learners. So I'm just here to ask you to, yes, adopt the core standards, but please remember that it's very critical that you align those to the ELD standards so that those students who have the lowest skills will not continue to fall through the cracks, and so that their teachers can help them. And I'm just here to say that my concern is for those students, especially who have the lowest proficiency levels. And so that they, I'm afraid that if you don't align the ELD standards to the core standards, that their needs will not be met.
Thanks.
Okay.
President Mitchell, Superintendent O'Connell, and distinguished members of the board, thank you for allowing me to make a few comments this morning on the important decision in front of you on the adoption of the Common Core. I'm John Dacey, new Deputy Superintendent in LA Unified.
Welcome back to California, John.
It's great to be back to California. 3 minutes, I get them back. I strongly support the adoption of the Common Core. California has always taken the lead in the nation for strong standards for youth, and you have taken time to thoroughly research these standards, examine their interplay with our framework, and begin a plan for a strong assessment system aligned with these standards. Now is the time to formally adopt them and take the lead for the country to see what strong and thoughtful implementation looks like. I've read the standards thoroughly, cover to cover, and I believe the academics speak for themselves, but it is also a social justice issue. Universal access and universal acquisition for every youth to these standards is imperative. I would like to pose two concerns that you should be mindful of. One is the algebra pathway issue. While I do not think it should stop the adoption of the Common Core, I believe that there is the potential for youth to be unwisely counseled on which path to take. I would urge you to publicly monitor who is taking the pathway and how they're doing. And second, the comments made, I strongly support on the ELD standards that they be strictly and carefully crosswalked with the ELA standards. I look forward to my part after you make your decision today in helping all teachers and principals develop the skills necessary to completely implement these standards so that we can make the
1 minute,
success
30
for every
seconds.
single student a reality. Thank you kindly.
Thank you, John.
Susan Solomon, Vice President of Education for the California State PTA. President Mitchell, Superintendent O'Connell, distinguished board members, the California State PTA, representing over 6 million children, supports the Common Core standards so that all children will be ready for college and for the workforce. And as has been stated, implementation is key, and the implementation of these core standards should be done in the real landscape of what California's political economy is, so that 4 to 10 years from now, we don't look back at this reform movement and say,
30
what
seconds.
happened? Our children are not performing as we had planned, and the outcomes are not as we thought. So implementation needs to be thoughtful, careful, and responsible, and smart. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fred Navarro, Scott Hill, and Monica Hinestroza.
Good afternoon, or near afternoon, President Mitchell, State Superintendent, members of the board. Fred Navarro, Assistant Superintendent, Anaheim Union High School District. I want to commend you for moving forward with the Common Core Standards concept. I just want to echo what many of the individuals have said here earlier. It's really important that you have woven in the ELD standards throughout the content areas. As a district that has 87% of its 8th graders in algebra, I can tell you that my math teachers will tell you the greatest obstacle for those kids mastering the subject is their academic literacy. And by weaving in the ELD standards throughout all of the core areas, you'll help us overcome that challenge. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, Monica Nestros on behalf of the San Diego Unified School District. I'm here with 3 messages on behalf of Superintendent Bill Koba and our Board of Education. We strongly support the adoption of the Common Core standards with the California additions, and there are 3 issues that I'll outline. First is that we strongly believe that the adoption will help us better meet our mission of college and career readiness for students. We think these standards are better equipped to move us in that direction. Second, we want to highlight the importance that adoption of these standards will have for students that are moving in and out of the state. San Diego Unified is particularly affected because we serve 10,000 students of military families, and we think that's an important consideration in your vote. The third is that we stand ready, like many other stakeholders do, to help you with the implementation. We have a large population of English learner students, and we look forward to working with you on those implementation issues as well as others. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, President Mitchell, Superintendent O'Connell, members of the board. I'm Scott Hill with School Innovations and Advocacy. A couple of quick points for you today. First, like many others, I support strongly and would encourage you to adopt this California version of Common Core standards. Second, President Mitchell, Undersecretary Gaither, and Commission Chair Geeding said very well, and we've heard today, implementation matters, which is why I would make a very strong recommendation to you. Your job today is quite narrow and quite focused. It is to adopt very specifically the academic content standards and do as little as possible to prejudge or predispose where the state will go in terms of the longer-term implementation issues. Those are all important. You don't want to prejudge where those will take you into the future, so I would encourage you to be very specific today in your actions around simply adopting the content standards. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Chris Steinhauser, Mike Hansen, Walter Richardson, and Michael Schreck.
Good morning, President Mitchell, Superintendent O'Connell, and members of the board. My name is Chris Steinhauser, the Superintendent of Long Beach Unified School District, as well as a member of the Validation Committee for the Common Core. On behalf of Long Beach Unified, I urge you strongly to adopt these, and we stand ready to support you and others in the implementation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Good morning, President Mitchell, Superintendent O'Connell, and members of the board. I'm here as the Superintendent of Fresno Unified, representing 73,000 students. And I'd just like to slow this down a moment and talk briefly about students. We're a district of 86% of our students are students of color, 83% students living in poverty. A year ago, in Fresno Unified, we developed a profile of students through our work in equity and access that we thought could make it in Algebra 1. These were students who were basic, coming out of 7th grade mathematics with a scale score of 325 or around scale score of 325. We, en masse, moved 800 students into Algebra 1 and folks didn't think they should be there. I'm proud to report to you that 667 of those students are now proficient moving into high school. Algebra 1 is out of the way and they're proficient. That will make for a dramatically different high school experience. Almost to a student, they are poor and students of color. So rigorous, clear standards matter. They push us at the local level. Students benefit, and all the noise that you will hear downstream, I think, is just all about us adults trying to figure out how to give students access that they so rightly deserve. We encourage you to strongly adopt the Common Core. Thank you.
Thanks. And while Walter is coming up, I want to thank Mike and Chris for their leadership, along with Ray Cortines, in developing our Race to the Top application. So the traveling team is here. Glad to see you guys.
Good morning, board members, Superintendent. I'm Walter Richards from Los Angeles Unified School District, Second Vice Chair of the District Advisory Committee. I represent 461,128 identified Title I students, and most of those are left students, English language learning students. We 100% support the adoption of the core academic standards. We also, although kids might be minority, they might learn differently, there's nothing wrong with their mind for learning. We just hope that you will make sure that the staff development, that kids are learning at the grade level that they are, so that when they get into the middle school, that they're not, teachers don't have to teach them at the 4th grade level what they should have known in the middle school. We also support you and your hard work that you're doing. We're also asking, as Ms. Ruth Bloom said, I was on the standards team in 1997. I'm hoping that if you didn't have no parents or community folks on there this one, next time when you do this, have parents and community folks there at the core part of this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Michael Schreck. That's all.
That's it. Great. Okay. Thank you all very much, and thanks for helping us keep on our schedule. Very important comments. This is a critical, historic opportunity for the state, but we need to be careful as we embark upon this decision. Board members, questions and comments? Yvonne and then David.
Well, good afternoon. Well, first of all, I want to thank all the speakers coming up to give us your input, and particularly the commissioners. I believe many of you are on Curriculum Commission, right? Still, were, was, whatever. And I still remember Sue Stickle, all those years, plugging and helping us with the standard-based reform for many, many years. So as Kathy Gaither said, it's a great start the last 13 years with the California standard that helped us at the school base to kind of move that forward. Now, having said that, is now I want to put on the hat of a practitioner. I mean, many of us get freaked out a little bit, okay? Honestly, the last 2 months say, what? This is coming and we're going to change everything we've been doing, you know, the sacred cow of all the standards. But fortunately, my school starts tomorrow, 2,500 kids returning to Vaughan. So last Thursday, I was able to bring 130 teachers, all my teachers, pre-K through 12, together. And I gave them a draft. I downloaded it, gave them a draft. And I said, okay, I'm going to serve food, I'm going to serve coffee, I serve everything except liquor, to kind of make sure that I'm not going to get eggs on my face, okay? Because I want to really hear what my teachers got to say to inform me how I'm going to vote today, okay? Versus what you said, that's very important. So what happened is I tried to sell it first. I said, wait a minute, I'm educated. I was educated in China and then in Hong Kong. I mean, you know, we have very rigorous international benchmarking standards. It wasn't for that, I wouldn't have made it into UCLA, right? And, you know, be sitting right here in this horseshoe. So I saw that this set of standards is college and career ready, benchmark against your greatest nations with the highest test scores, your TIM, whatever it is. With my own experience, I said, look, teachers, we have to kind of start switching gears. Then I put them in the rooms for 4 hours. Then they came back, and this is the report. They said, first of all, the first group said, hey, you know what? Really, this is fewer standards. I said, oh, is that a good thing, fewer standards, you know? But then he said, no, it's more focused standards, much more focused. And I know sometimes we blame ourselves, say it's mile wide and inch deep for California standards compared to Japan. For those who had the opportunity to visit, you know, schools in Singapore and Japan. And they said, look, you know, really, like Greg Keating said, there is that crosswalk. So they're not giving up their beloved standards that's already posted on all the bulletin boards with the focused standards and deeper. Oh, good. Okay. So they get me going. Then another group said, now I have pre-K through 12. So I'm very, very cognizant of what my secondary teachers are going to say. Well, this group said, well, it is a progression. Instead of discrete standards in different grades, it is, like you say, a staircase, very clear progression. Okay, great. You give me a second point. Now come my secondary people. Woo, my science teacher and my history, social studies teachers. And they said, what? You mean we are teaching literacy? Oh, you're out of your mind. That's what I thought they would say. But no, the department chair said, well, that's nice to have them clearly told us that we are also responsible for writing, reading, and language, and then we will work with our colleagues on that. Here comes my English department and my elementary. Now, of course, we have the debate of phonics, whole language, literature, etc., right? We're there. Don't forget, I serve 100% free and reduced. 98% walk-in ELDs, 98%. They are the school, so don't tell me a subgroup. They're not subgroup. They are the school. Then they said, well, if you have a balance of your fundamentals, which they love, the phonemic awareness, okay, the fundamental, then the literature, great, and the information text. That's a good balance. And they felt that, hey, look, maybe that will provide the multiple paths for our students who are low-income English learners to be able to kind of weigh in all three fronts. And I'm done on one. Now here comes my math teachers. Hold on, my math teachers. Don't forget there's an algebra issue at my school, okay? Like any schools. Granted, they said there is a good balance between procedures, you know. Teachers do think of procedures. In a city school, procedures. You add, you subtract, you do this, you do that, all the procedures. But do the kids really understand, right? How you balance understanding and procedures. And this said, of standards do balance that, understanding and procedures. You know, you bring down the one, you subtract that, you know, those long division stuff, common denominator. Now the overstuffing of algebra in 8th grade. Oh my gosh. Used to be the high school teacher would say, the middle school did not prepare my kids. And the middle school will say, the elementary, right? Elementary will go, the preschool, right? And the preschool will point to the parents. And parents point to who? God? I do not know. Where are they going to do? But as they look at it, and very clearly, this is different, is before we have very little learning opportunity for the kids on fractions in elementary. Now my 3rd grade teacher woke up and said, oh my gosh, we are going to teach fraction equivalence and ordering. What refreshing idea. Of course, they have to go and learn it themselves. Many of them just kind of, And then the middle school say, wow, you know, if starting in 3rd grade we do this fractions stuff, by 7th and 8th grade, there's no reason that my school, though as hardcore, difficult, at this point 50% pass the algebra proficiency, 28% algebra 2. It's a struggle. We started with 8% only 3 years ago. So I really stand by algebra, definitely. But this provides even an algebra plus type of situation and added the geometry. So with that, let me just say that I'm not as good as Mike Hansen. Where are you, Mike? Okay, you get 600 kids up there. I don't. But anyway, we're getting close. So now I will say, in a leap of faith to my colleagues, that I urge you to adopt this CCR, or your Common Core standards. And I trust that this board, along with CDE and SUSTICO and everybody else, that you will very cautiously and strategically complete an implementation plan that take into account of the ELDs, that take into account of students with disabilities, that will network with all the other states. I believe, Ruth, there are 48 states signed on, not 30, 48, except Alaska and Texas, I think. Well, whatever it is. Huh? Great, even Puerto Rico's in. What is California thinking? Okay. All right. So really, that's a faith in that. But meanwhile, as a board member, I have to say that I trust myself. At the end, we have to do that. I trust that I, along with all of you, have the knowledge and the skills and the experience and know what are some potential pitfalls that we trust that we can create this new implementation plan that will make it work. So the fortune cookies, I can write it, and I hope you all will support it. And thank you.
Alan and then David, please.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion, but just a comment before the motion. And I want to, again, commend, I know we've done it over and over, but there's a reason that we're commending Greg and Sue and the Commission for their truly outstanding efforts. And I want to echo what Greg said, substance and adequacy of the implementation will be the key. Plans don't implement themselves, people do. And to those that have led the way thus far, I applaud you, and I certainly hope we'll be able to work with them on the implementation plan. I think it's important, and again, I'd like to take full credit for this thought, but again, it's the wonderful work that Greg and Sue and the folks put together in this document. There's something that is not covered by the standards, or I should say there's a lot of stuff that is not covered by the standards. And I'm quoting from some of the words in here, but the standards should be recognized for what they are, not as well as what they are. Recognized for what they are not as well as what they are for. The standards define what all students are expected to know and be able to do, not how teachers should teach. And the standards make references to some particular forms of content. Indeed, they cannot enumerate all or even most of the content that students should learn. The standards must therefore be complemented by a well-developed, content-rich curriculum consistent with the expectations laid out. While the standards focus on what is most essential, they do not describe all or that should be taught. A great deal is left to the discretion of the teachers and the curriculum developers. And as we're hearing time and time again, this is an open-ended question and answer. The aim of the standards is to articulate the fundamentals, not to set out an exhaustive list or a set of restrictions that limits what can be taught and beyond what is specified. The standards set grade-specific standards, but do not define the intervention methods or materials necessary to support students who are well below grade level expectations. No set of grade-specific standards can fully reflect the great varieties in abilities, needs, learning rates, and achievement levels of the students in any given classroom. However, the standards do provide clear signposts along the way to the goal of college and career readiness. And again, I want to talk about the comprehensiveness, if you could indulge me just for a minute, because again, the words are here, and if anybody hasn't taken the time to go through the thousands of pages, both on the national level and here in California, I suggest that you do. It is beyond the scope of the standards to define the full range of supports appropriate for ELL learners, which I know it's been raised here today. And at the same time, all students must have the opportunity to learn and meet the same high standards if they are to have access to the knowledge and skills necessary in their post-high school lives. Likewise, the standards should be read as allowing for the widest possible range of students to participate fully from the outset, as permitting appropriate accommodations to ensure maximum participation of students with special education needs. Here again, technology will have a profound impact in the future and in every area that the Commission touched and that we are looking at. Technology will be changing the framework and the implementation abilities in ways that we can't even imagine. So while the ELA and math standards being proposed are critical to college and career readiness, they do not define the whole of such readiness. Students require a wide-ranging, rigorous academic preparation, and particularly in the early grades, attention to such matters as social, emotional, and physical development and approaches to learning. And I say that again because there is so much. There's the movie, I think it was in Amadeus, where they said too many notes. There can never be too many notes, but these standards proposed on the ELA and math standards are a remarkable starting point, and the implementation plan will be everything. And so I'd like to make a motion that pursuant to Senate Bill 51, I move that the California State Board of Education hereby adopt the academic content standards as proposed by the Academic Content Standards Commission in English language arts and mathematics. These standards include the Common Core and specific additional standards the Commission has deemed necessary to maintain the integrity and rigor of California's already very, very high standards.
I'll second that motion. I'd like to make a comment. First of all, like my colleagues, I'd like to thank the Commission and Greg and Sue Stickler. I've also Stickle.
She is a stickler.
Stickler
she
for
is
details.
a stickler. That's a part of the legend.
And to you also, Ted, for reminding us what our task is here today and our charge. And I think it's important that we focus on the Common Core standards. But I also hear from our colleagues that the standards, as Greg stated, is only the beginning. It's kind of the destination that we want all our kids to be at. But the road there is very important. And I'm hearing from our colleagues that we need to be very diligent, very vigilant, and mindful of the process of getting us there. Therefore, the implementation plan is critical, and I've heard that many times here this morning. So I think, again, we have to be vigilant and mindful of that process. I'd also like to make a comment about the English language learners. I know that that's been an issue. I was glad to hear that Sue Stickle mentioned that the Commission was sensitive to the English language learner issue in the state. And as we all know, 47% of kids go home speaking a language other than English. 41% of our kids in kindergarten are English language learners. So there's a lot of students that are coming up in those grades, and we need to prepare them. So I think that we need to really work closely and diligently as we move these standards forward. There's one thing I'd like to suggest, in that there was a lot of comments made about English language learners. We do have an English language advisory committee, And I'd like to volunteer that we use that committee very diligently and strategically to help us think this process through in order to address the serious challenges that we have in this state in regards to educating English language learners. Because I'm of the firm conviction if we don't get that right, we're not going to have our future workforce, not only for California, but for the nation. So just as a thought, I'd like to add that in as a commentary.
Thanks for volunteering. I think that's good. I know that there are other board members who have comments that they would like to make before we proceed to a vote. Ben?
Thank you, President Mitchell. I'll be brief, both because I have colleagues on the board and leaders in this room who are far more knowledgeable than I am about this issue. But I did want to make a few quick comments. I first want to thank the commissioners, but I also for their wonderful work. But I also want to thank. I don't think we've acknowledged the leadership of President Obama and Secretary Arne Duncan for getting us, seizing this moment and getting us to where we are today with regards to Common Core standards and a whole host of other innovative, groundbreaking reforms that have occurred throughout this state and this nation. So as I was thinking about this vote and thinking about the consequential and even historic nature of it, I was trying to bring a different perspective to it, which is the perspective of a dad. I have two very young daughters, neither of whom slept very well last night, who are both going to be, one is 11 months old, and Eloise is 11, and Fiona is 4, and these standards are going to impact their entire academic life in the state of California. And so as I was thinking about this vote, a vote for the status quo or for the Common Core standards, I was trying to really think about this in terms of what was better for them and what was better for the rest of the children in California. And as I continue to drill down on it, there has been a lot of talk and a lot of dialogue about whether these standards are higher or lower than the current standards that we have. The reason I'm going to vote in favor of the Common Core standards and proudly vote in favor of the Common Core standards is that I believe they are smarter than the standards that we currently have. And I think it's just because we all know a lot more about how kids learn, as well as about what types of skills students are going to need to enter a 21st century economy. We know a lot more now than we did over a decade ago about those issues. In terms of how kids learn, I think everybody has said this more eloquently than I can, but I mean, it does seem to me that building organically upon ideas and concepts so that kids are actually learning deep knowledge of concepts rather than just memorizing answers is the best way for us to prepare kids to be critical thinkers. I also think that there's been a lot of interesting back and forth about the English language arts standards and about the addition of an emphasis on nonfiction study and thinking. And I thought about that a lot because I am the son of two writers. My dad was a novelist. My mom was a children's book writer. And so I grew up in a home with a deep appreciation for literature and words and writing. It's very important to me personally. And I think that the Common Core standards still embrace that, and it's critical. Every child in California has to grow up and graduate with a knowledge of art and literature. But I also think it's very important that we acknowledge that our kids today are going to grow up and graduate into an economy that is wildly different than anything we have ever seen before, an economy that is dominated by information. And the students that succeed in that economy are going to be the students that graduate with the skills and the tools to critically integrate and critically analyze that information, and to do it quickly and to do it intelligently. And I think that these standards are an important step forward in terms of preparing our students for that economy. I do believe that there are many other factors that are currently contributing to the problematic, to say the least, problematic status quo for children in California. But it's also true that even if we turn around and transform every single failing school in California, but those schools are teaching kids to the wrong standards, we will not have done our job. So this is a critical vote, an historic vote, and I'm honored to vote yes because I believe it's good for my two daughters, Fiona and Eloise, and I believe these standards are good for all the children of California. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Greg?
Thank you. I, too, will try to be brief. I try to come to this also from a couple different perspectives. People with a lot more knowledge than I know more about the intricacies of this. But, as I looked at it, I tried to look at it as, my role as a business leader in the state. And clearly, I think that these Common Core standards do have the ability to help us strengthen our competitiveness worldwide, particularly if they are benchmarked against the best that we have in this country and benchmarked internationally as well. Because unquestionably, we will need to have today's students, who will be tomorrow's workforce, have the computational, analytical, communications skills that we can measure consistently around the country. And I think that is of great value to us in the business community, and will ready young people for their next destination. I think that for me has become an important piece of this. I too, though, kind of like Ben, I looked at it. I tried to look at this from another perspective and more of a personal perspective, and my own experience I think helped me understand the value of this a little bit more, because of job transfers in my corporate career, our two sons attended schools in 6 different states as we moved around the country. And I witnessed firsthand the dramatic differences in rigor and quality of standards and expectations that both schools and teachers had for my kids to meet them as we were in these various places. And so as parents, my wife and I made it our business to make sure that our kids were learning, or whatever they were learning and wherever they were learning them in these various schools and various states, that they had the quality and the caliber of rigor that assured that they were being adequately prepared to succeed in college. And I guess, I feel that they were lucky, just like probably your kids, the people in this room, are pretty lucky, because they have parents who took it upon themselves to intervene and advocate in their behalf. And, my point in that is that expectations for excellence shouldn't depend on luck. They shouldn't depend on luck, or where you live, or who your parents are, or what your economic status is. Because as all of us in this room know, many of our nation's kids are not as fortunate as our kids in this room. And so, I think that has become a valuable lesson to me, as I've been sort of thinking about this. I always kind of defer to, and some of these people in this room have heard me do this before, but I always refer to the great lessons that I learned from my grandmother. My grandmother was unusually a college-educated woman, as her father, my great-grandfather, was a university president. And she put in our bedroom, my brother and I, from the time I was a little kid, a little plaque that we saw every day that said, "No one rises to low expectations." And I saw that every single day of my life. And so I guess I just say all that to say, from where I sit, I'm going to say hallelujah. Because I think, at last, high expectations for all kids, no matter their ethnicity, no matter where they live, no matter their language, can and should become a reality. And so, Common Core standards, I think, from my perspective, can assure that every child at least has an equal opportunity to reach their full potential. So I am anxiously looking forward to voting yes on the Common Core standard.
Thank you, Greg. Excellent. Jonathan?
And I'll dovetail Member Jones's hallelujah and try and secure my place in heaven and try and be brief to the extent that I am able to. One, I want to thank just everyone who worked so hard on these standards. They are amazing. The only statement that I'll make is one around the equity issue. We know that we have issues with certain population, and I'll echo Superintendent Deasy's comments with regard to making sure that we're monitoring how algebra continues. It sounds like there's room for alignment with the 8th grade goal and our history as a policy-making body as it relates to 8th grade. And it also sounds like there's plenty of room for alignment with our English language learners as well. So with that, I will strongly support.
Thank you. Jim?
Thank you for all the people that worked so hard. Thank you for the sentiments expressed around the room. And I'll call for the question.
I do. It does give me the chance, though, to say me too and stop.
Excuse me. Hi, I'm Angela
Yes.
Patello, Interim Chief Counsel for the
Yes.
State Board of Education. And before you proceed to the vote, I'd like to offer a friendly amendment. I believe the reference was to Senate
Yes.
Bill 51. So do you want to correct that?
So the reference should be to Senate Bill 51X.
51X. So
It's Senate, okay, it can be Senate Bill 1, or more specifically, Senate Bill X51.
So let me
Shows
just
you the
read for the record
dyslexia with which I've struggled.
for the motion pursuant to Senate Bill X51. That I move that the California State Board of Education hereby adopt the academic content standards as proposed by the Academic Content Standards Commission in English Language Arts and Mathematics. These standards include the Common Core and specific additional standards the Commission has deemed necessary to maintain the integrity and rigor of California's already extremely high standards.
Motion's been made by Mr. Arkatov, seconded by Mr. Lopez. The question has been called by Mr. Ashwandon. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The vote is unanimous. Members, this is a historic moment. It's a historic moment for the state of California, more importantly for the children of California, for Ben's kids, my kids, all of our kids. This will matter. I'd like to make the following statements with relation to the work and many of the comments that have been made that I think will help steer us into the next phase, into this implementation. You're looking puzzled. Okay. That I think will help move us now into implementation. So first, this is, as many of us have said throughout our discussion today, the beginning of a process and not the end of one. And therefore, on behalf of the board, I'd like to direct CDE and board staff to create an implementation plan as defined in the legislation and to work with the legislature to launch a curriculum development process that can begin to operationalize these standards. In the course of that work, we hope that the framers will take into account the comments made today regarding the shaping of curricula and individual courses from the collection of standard elements that we've adopted today. Second, I'd also like to direct the staff of the Academic Standards Commission, that mighty staff of 21, to proceed with technical cleanup of the draft report we have before us. We've discussed today and elsewhere several inconsistencies that reflect nothing more than the time pressure that the Commission was under, and we'd appreciate their continuing work to resolve those and clarify those. Further, we hope that the Curriculum Commission and the framework committees, or whatever the apparatus is, but the implementation organizations that flow from this, will give consideration to the commentary from the Academic Content Standards Commission, which is separate from the standards we've adopted today, but important in understanding the Commission's thinking. I would especially commend to them and to members of this board the statements of the Commission regarding English language learners and students with disabilities. And finally, I want once again to thank the members of the Academic Content Standards Commission, its chair, Greg Geeting, and its project director, Sue Stickle, for their extraordinary work on behalf of California and its children. Thanks to you, California remains a beacon to the nation and a leader in the movement to establish high standards and, importantly, high outcomes for all of our children. Thanks. We'll take a 5-minute break, and then the board will go into closed session.